Hi, this is Rachel Israel with STEM News and Global World Report. We have breaking news that will have a huge impact on the global scene in the very near future. Let's take a look at what's going on around the world.
They steal, they plunder our states, they bring everything to the master, and their wealth is kept with the master. They do everything to live like the master and always satisfy him. Do you know who these slaves of Salon are? Well, we are going to explain to you what they are. They are individuals who have no dignity, who have no morals, who have no personality. But the master slave has always known how to identify these individuals. They are always ready to betray their brother to satisfy the master. They have betrayed us since independence, and others continue to betray us to the benefit of their master. These individuals continue, against all odds, to help the master plunder Africa. They like to say it every year. In their economic polls, Burkina is the poorest country, Mali is the poorest country, Niger is the poorest country. We are ranked among the last. Very well, if we are as poor as they say. But when the time has come to take responsibility, we have asked this master to leave the place. Why don't they want to leave? When we take the case of Niger, for more than 40 years, some countries have been exploiting uranium to produce energy at home. From Ottawa to Paris, the streets are illuminated. It is the light. But in Niger, it is the darkness that has served us. When you go to our states, our soils are full of precious metals, such as gold. But often there is not even the slightest road accessible to reach the areas where they exploit gold, even less certain basic social services. This is why we have decided to revolt and take the fate of our countries into our own hands. There are many other examples, but when we decided so, we were approached by some saloon slaves to pass on the message of their master. Because they had created this kind of polymer chain that rises to the heads of our states to serve them. And we came to break the chain. And it is inconceivable for them. They approached us and asked us to enter the ranks to make the elite leave that must lead Africa. Because they have an elite formed and formatted that must follow, that is embedded in this chain. We refused to enter their ranks. And then the hostilities began. They have sent several mercenaries and trainers to our area. The agents have descended into the Sahel to carry out barbaric, cowardly attacks against our people, hoping to revolt them. In addition to these attacks on the ground, the attacks on communication, manipulation, and disinformation are full in their ranks. But the people of the Sahel have understood, and we will never be able to be manipulated again. They know where they come from, they know what they are doing, and they know where they are going. We will no longer allow this. People are awake, and people are fighting today, not for ourselves, but for future generations. And thank you all for the fight that is being fought. This will never make us cry. We will not tremble. We will fight. We will fight for real independence, for our freedom. Because to scare the people of the Sahel, these individuals have only 3 terms in their mouths: democracy, freedom, human rights.
Bien sûr,
Of course, their local values are only elected in a democratic, free and transparent process according to their values.
libre et transparent selon eux leurs valeurs. Quoi de plus normal?
What is more normal, that we want to impose this on ourselves, because it is they who dictate the rules.
Très bien. Nous avons décidé de nous assumer.
Very well, we have decided to take responsibility.
2023,
Do you know why on June 26, 2023, when Niger decided to turn the page, the slaves of Salon and their masters got on the big horses?
et leurs maîtres sont montés sur les grands chevaux. Ils ont mis leurs valets locaux en avant.
They put their local values forward and decided to wage a war against the Nigerian people. So we said, anyone who dares to take up arms against Niger will face us.
Au Niger. Nous aura en face.
Because we will wage a merciless war until the last drop of blood for anyone who dares to attack our states.
Pour quiconque osera s'attaquer à nos États. Cette parole,
This word, this decision we made yesterday, is current today and will be current tomorrow and forever.
et sera d'actualité demain et pour toujours.
Often say something to call on African heads of state to wake up and take care of our youth.
Publiquement, à nos propos,
We are often misunderstood. Some have publicly opposed us. Some have publicly opposed us because they feel indexed. But I can assure you, youth, that when we find ourselves in the quarters,
ces mêmes chefs d'État nous disent vous êtes sur la bonne voie, c'est ce qu'il faut faire pour que l'Afrique.
these same heads of state tell us that we are on the right track and that this is what needs to be done so that Africa can rise again.
Nous leur posons des questions à savoir pourquoi vous ne
So we ask them questions like, why don't you do like us? Why don't you support us?
Certains nous disent qu'ils ne peuvent pas. Chers aînés,
Some tell us that they have the means, and some tell us that they can't.
Je souhaiterais dire que les peuples africains sont les peuples les plus pacifiques.
Dear elders, African heads of state, at the end of this podium, I would like to say that African peoples are the most peaceful. That African peoples are the most peaceful. When you recognize a wrong, you have to tell the people. When you recognize a wrong, you have to tell the people. We are not afraid to come out and tell the people we are sorry. We have been compromised. We have been mistreated. We have been compromised by several things, and we ask for forgiveness, and we come back on the right path and to start working really for the independence of our states and our emancipation. And I think it is possible. If we remain in this posture of fear, we will be cowardly and history will judge us. Our children will ask questions. Our grandchildren will ask questions. We are writing history. There is no place for cowardice. If our ancestors had been cowardly, we would not be here. Do you remember? I will give you an example of the people of Bamileke and Bassa. I want to talk about the Cameroonians, the union of the population of Cameroon, which since the 1950s has started a relentless fight against the Poles, but they have been massacred. The French colonial armies, in turn, have dispatched infantry battalions, tanks, helicopters, have annihilated anti-village. The most inhuman tortures have taken place during this period. You can do research on what they call the cart or the Bakasima. Hundreds of thousands of people have been decimated in Africa because they dared to ask their settlers to leave their land. A civil war that lasted several years. That is to say that people dared to face the imperialists with their bare hands so that we could be here. There is no reason why we cannot face the imperialists so that our future generations can live. There are many examples throughout Africa of brave men who refused to be cowardly, who fought, who faced. Well, let us be worthy of these people. We are their descendants, and let us be worthy of them. A coward cannot be worthy. Let us not be cowards, young Africans, because a coward is always a traitor. And it goes hand in hand. They will try to frighten us so that we become cowards. And if we are cowards, we will betray. We must ban the treachery of our habits. Africans have been traitors so that the slave trade succeeds in Africa. It is because Africans have been traitors that colonization has been able to sustain in Africa. Let us question history. We will see. Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, was betrayed because he dared to hold his head. And these same beautiful televisions came to the Congo for a few bids extended to individuals in the Congo for an interview to please their population. And you were able to follow that. Lumumba bothered us. He is dead. We are happy. It is treachery. Many other heroes have fallen so that we are here today. And it is a technique of imperialism to frighten others by taking action to really create terror. It has not started today. I will give you the example of a warrior who fought, Victor Biakaboda.
Lisez, vous comprendrez. Il est issu d'une famille de chefs.
Read it and you will understand.
He
came from a family of chiefs. No chiefdom given by the colonizer. He was a worthy child. He studied in Senegal, I believe. He became a doctor in Guinea. And when the RDA was created, he went to the Ivory Coast region to fight against imperialists, against invaders, against the colonizer. He tried to organize the Ivorian society. Everywhere, people began to speak up. There was a general in his time, Pichu, who massacred the Ivorian population so that this spirit of freedom could never germinate. He continued his fight alongside F.A.O.R.C.U.C. Lix Uffe-Boigny. They fought. But the most violent was Victor Biakaboda. He represented a threat to the imperialists. What did he do? In addition to massacring the people who demonstrated, one night they killed him in an atrocious way next to Bois-Flancy. A few hours later, when the people of Dimbakro heard the murder, they marched, they demonstrated. They were massacred by the colonial army. History was killed. The facts are there. After his death, which scared FOC Lix Uffe-Boigny, they called him and told him, if you continue the fight, you will meet the same fate. He was afraid and he joined imperialism. He was appointed minister in France and later he came to take the reins of the Ivorian Accord. They used him to eliminate many other people who dared to raise their voices. I think Thomas Sankara is a good example. If you are afraid, you will be cowardly and you will be a traitor. Never be afraid. The fight must continue. There are many other examples around the world. And there is this phenomenon that they have also used for a long time and that they continue to use. You see, some individuals, for example, have found themselves in other countries and created a so-called parallel government to the Malian government. You have heard this story. It is a technique that has existed for a long time. I will give you the example of Ahmed Chalabi, Iraq. This math teacher, who was even in the Iraqi government, was recaptured by the imperialists, and he formed this semblance of parallel government in Iraq, in the United States. And he was used to be the sheep of sacrifice. Because it was to him that it was said that Saddam Hussein was developing weapons of mass destruction, and he did it. They used him. And this Talibi was used to kill millions of children in Iraq and destroy Iraq. And do you know what was the fate of Chalabi? One evening after an interview, he said that he knew that the CIA was on his back. A few hours later, he was found dead in his bed, dead of a heart attack. If you betray, you will have macabre endings. That's how it is. Imperialism has no friends. Imperialism uses you. And when it finishes using you, it does what it wants with you. Follow my gaze. You understand what I'm talking about. It has always been like this. The third vice that I invite you to leave is incompetence. I'm coming back to the word of the Islamist who walked on my tongue. Incompetence. You understand what I'm talking about. In our administrations, there is a lot of incompetence. Let's recognize it. Incompetence have a lot of space next to imperialism. Because incompetence can take over the development of a country. Incompetence can lead you to doubt yourself. Incompetents love ease. Incompetents love everything for themselves. Incompetents don't like those who are competent. They don't like those who innovate, those who seek. Incompetents are dangerous. When you are enlightened, incompetents don't like you. When you want to innovate, incompetents don't like you. Incompetents only recognize those who are competent, and they will fight him until his last breath. Because he is afraid of those who are competent. Seek knowledge. Seek knowledge and work. Work hard to be competent. Ban incompetence. Because through distractions that we want to make us adopt, we become incompetent. I'll give you an example. Social networks are the places where information is published today. People are informed through the internet. A young man who publishes an article on his farm or an agricultural project or a scientific project may not have 1,000 views. But a young man who publishes on futility has millions of views. As the young slammer said, we want to waste your time on futility. Be aware. Let's focus on work and seek knowledge. Let's seek competence. It's good to be distracted, but we must work first before being distracted. Seek knowledge, otherwise you'll waste your time doing nothing.
Cherchez la connaissance, sinon vous perdrez du temps à ne rien faire.
Youth is the time when you must use your time wisely.
Il faut exploiter son temps à bon escient. Les impérialistes le savent.
The imperialists know this.
Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est événement de distraction. Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est.
That's why they multiply all events of distraction.
Pour que vous soyez des incompétents.
They multiply all events that can distract you from work so that you become incompetent. When you fall asleep, you choose the incompetent to lead the important structures. You have no choice but to fold. Let's not be incompetent. Let's seek knowledge.
Les incompétents se cachent souvent derrière des mots.
Incompetents often hide behind words. They use the terms democracy and freedom without realizing what they mean.
Camarades, la démocratie est un état
Democracy is a state of mind as much as youth is a state of mind.
Ces soi-disant démocrates,
Whether you're a Democrat or not,
comment est-ce qu'on peut...
how can you impose democracy by killing millions of people?
C'est de la dictature, ça, ce n'est pas de la démocratie. Ça ne
It's a
s'impose pas.
dictatorship, not democracy. You can't impose it.
Ceux-là qui se disent démocrates, mais regardez, nous avons
Those who
vu
call
des
themselves
scènes
Democrats have seen scenes where people were prevented from joining assemblies.
Des scènes où des forces ont débarqué dans des assemblées pour obliger...
We've seen scenes where forces landed in assemblies to force deputies to take texts.
Plus terrible que ça.
We've seen more terrible scenes where people kill their demonstrators. But they call themselves Democrats, and we're called Perseus.
Si c'est ça la démocratie, je répète...
If that's democracy, I repeat, we don't want this democracy.
Et quand vous voyez souvent les incompétents,
And when you see
ils ne
incompetence,
cherchent pas à savoir quelle est la signification du
they
mot
don't seek to
démocratie
know what the
réelle.
real meaning of the word
Ils s'approchent
democracy
juste
is.
à la définition qui lui a donné l'impérialisme et il se met...
They cling to the definition given to them by imperialism and start talking about democracy without really knowing the basics. That's incompetence.
Regardez le monde pour redéfinir la démocratie.
You have to know, look at the world to redefine democracy as we want it in Africa.
Les incompétents se cachent derrière les libertés.
Incompetence hides behind freedom. Remember, there is no individual freedom. It's a fact.
C'est un fait.
Do you really think everyone is free? Freedom is collective. As long as we live in a society with rules, freedom is collective.
Avec des règles, la liberté est collective. Parce que si vous ne respectez pas les règles,
Because if you don't respect the rules, you can't live in society.
si vous êtes libre de parler comme
If you're free to speak as you please, the other is free to answer as he pleases. That would be disorder.
ça sera du désordre. Si vous êtes libre de
If you're
rouler dans
free to
la rue et
walk
de
the
passer
streets
le
and
feu
pass
rouge,
traffic lights as you
l'autre est
please,
libre de passer aussi et de vous cogner.
the other is free to pass by and hit you.
Comprenez que si
You understand that if individual freedom takes over, we are in a society of disorder.
voilà pourquoi il y a des règles dans la société.
That's why there are rules in society,
Et là, on parle de liberté collective.
and everyone has to
Donc,
respect the rules.
certains se donnent le droit de parler de leur liberté individuelle.
That's why we're talking about collective freedom. Some people have the right to speak about their individual freedom, but they don't care about others. I think that's also part of incompetence,
Ils s'arrogent les droits que peut-être les États les ont donnés.
because they don't try to understand. They make up the rights given by the states to serve and do everything for themselves, neglecting the freedom of others.
On pense à la liberté d'autrui.
No, freedom is collective. Before we act, we think about the freedom of others, and we shouldn't transcend the freedom of others. So we need to have a reserve. And once we have a reserve, individual freedom doesn't exist. Freedom is collective, and we need to have this culture of collective freedom.
Join me as I break down President Ibrahim Traore's shocking message to Donald Trump and see if I can uncover the hidden meaning behind his words. The significance of President Ibrahim Traore's message cannot be overstated. As the leader of Burkina Faso, Traore's words carry weight, and when directed at a global figure like Donald Trump, it's bound to send shockwaves. So, what could be so impactful about this message that it's generating so much buzz? Today, we're going to dive in and find out. At the heart of President Traore's message is a call to action, one that challenges the status quo of U.S.-Africa relations. He's addressing a central issue that's been simmering in the background for far too long: the lack of meaningful engagement between the two regions. For decades, Africa has been treated as an afterthought, a continent relegated to the periphery of global politics. But Traore is saying, enough is enough. He's demanding that the United States take Africa seriously, recognizing the continent's vast potential and its rightful place on the world stage. This isn't just about symbolism, it's about tangible action. Traore is pushing for concrete investments, trade agreements, and diplomatic partnerships that benefit both Africa and the United States. He's calling out the asymmetry in the current relationship, where the US reaps the benefits while Africa is left with little more than crumbs. The Burkina president is drawing a line in the sand, saying that it's time for a more equitable partnership. Traore's message is particularly poignant given the current state of global politics. With rising nationalism and protectionism, the world is more divided than ever. In this context, his call for cooperation and mutual respect is a breath of fresh air. It's a reminder that, despite our differences, we're all in this together. The US and Africa need each other, and it's time to acknowledge this interdependence. The context behind Traore's message is equally fascinating. Historical events, such as the African independence movements and the Cold War, have shaped the continent's relationship with the West. Political dynamics, like the rise of China as a global power, are also playing a significant role. By considering these factors, we can better understand the motivations behind Traore's words and the potential implications for international relations. In the 1960s, African nations were fighting for independence from colonial powers. The US played a significant role in supporting these movements, but after the Cold War, Africa was largely forgotten. Today, China is filling the void, making massive investments in infrastructure development and trade agreements. This shift in the global balance of power is forcing the US to reevaluate its approach to Africa, and Traore's message is a stern reminder that it can't afford to be complacent. The implications of Traore's message are far-reaching. If the US fails to take Africa seriously, it risks losing ground to China and other global powers. On the other hand, if it chooses to engage with Africa in a meaningful way, the benefits could be enormous. It's a chance to create a new era of cooperation, one that prioritizes mutual respect and understanding. One of the most powerful parts of Traore's message is his emphasis on African agency. He's not asking for handouts or sympathy, he's demanding that Africa be treated as an equal partner. This is a turning point in US-Africa relations, a moment where the continent is standing up for its rights and refusing to be marginalized. Traore's words are a clarion call to action, urging both leaders and citizens to recognize Africa's value and its contribution to the global community. Traore's message is a warning that the days of patronizing Africa are over. The continent is no longer willing to be treated as a charity case or a pawn in global politics. It's a sovereign entity with its own interests, needs, and aspirations. By acknowledging this, Traore is paving the way for a more mature and equitable relationship between the US and Africa. In many ways, Traore's message is a reflection of the changing global landscape. The old certainties are crumbling, and new powers are emerging. The US can no longer afford to ignore Africa, it needs to engage with the continent on its own terms. This message is a call to action, urging us to rethink our assumptions and biases about Africa and its place in the world. In summary, President Ibrahim Traore's message to Donald Trump is a clarion call to action. He's challenging the status quo, demanding that the US take Africa seriously, and recognizing the continent's agency and value. This message has the potential to be a game-changer, forcing a re-evaluation of US-Africa relations and paving the way for a more equitable partnership. Thanks for watching. What do you think about President Traore's message to Donald Trump? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to explore more about international relations and political commentary, check out our video on the rise of China in Africa. The link is in the description box.
Well, that's the news for tonight. Thank you so much for continually supporting our content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they would find it interesting as well. We're very excited to continue this journey with you. We thank you all for bringing certain stories to our attention, and for continually keeping us updated with certain events around the world.